Well, good morning and welcome everybody. A virtual meeting of the Transportation Policy Committee is called to order. Staff, can you please take a roll of the members to see if we have a quorum?
Thank you, Chair and members of the Transportation Policy Committee. I will go down the list of members. Please unmute and indicate if you are present. Rock Arnett. Mayor Barney.
I am here. Thank you.
Thank you. Dave Barry. Councilmember Binsbacher.
I'm present.
Thank you. Jen Daniels.
Present.
Thank you. Doug DeClusen.
Here.
Thank you. Councilmember Durham.
Here.
Thank you. Mayor Gallego. Mayor Giles.
Present.
Thank you. Mayor Hall.
I'm here.
Thank you. Charles Hugh Mantle.
Present.
Thank you. Vice President Leonard. Mayor Orsborn.
Present.
Thank you. Mayor Bridget Peterson.
Present.
Thank you. Mayor Price. Mark Reardon.
Present.
Thank you. Supervisor Sellers.
Here.
Thank you. Mayor Wires.
I'm here.
Thank you. Mayor Weiss.
Present.
Thank you. Mayor Woods. And our chair is here. Is there anyone that I missed?
Hi, it's
Thank
Mayor
you.
Woods. I'm here. Sorry, I couldn't get unmuted quick enough.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor Woods. Anyone else? Thank you. We have quorum.
Thank you, Ben. So we have quorum. All attendees entering the meeting, entered the meeting muted. Please remember to unmute your device before speaking and mute when you are not speaking. Before we move forward to today's agenda, we do want to extend our heartfelt sympathy to Mayor Lord's family and the city of Goodyear. I want to thank Goodyear and all involved, all who participated and spoke at Mayor Lord's celebration of life service. It was well done, and I really felt glad that I was able to also attend. Her leadership will be felt for generations to come, not just in the West Valley, but across the Valley and state. She played an important role in generating the support to approve momentum and in the number of other items over her years as a public servant. She will be missed. Mayor Joe Pizzillo was appointed to fill the remainder of Mayor Lord's term. And I didn't hear Councilmember Bill step on, but I know that Goodyear will continue to be an important part of this particular body as well. So our next item is a call to the audience. Members of the public were asked to submit written comments related to this meeting through the MAG website. Comments may be sent at any time leading up to the meeting, but must be received at least 1 hour prior to the posted start time for the meeting. And this is an opportunity for the public to comment on items that fall under MAG's jurisdiction that are not on the agenda, or that are on the agenda for discussion, but not for action. Staff, do we have any public comments?
Thank you, Chair and members of the Transportation Policy Committee. We received 4 comments for today.
Please read them.
Thank you. Our first comment comes from Dennis Kavanaugh of Mesa. I will begin comment. I continue to believe the diamond grinding process that was used on the US 60 and the 101 freeways was the wrong process to adopt, and that continuing the rubberized asphalt process is in the best interests of my neighborhood, Dobson Ranch, community, and the state for public safety and health reasons, as well as for short and long-term fiscal reasons. While serving for multiple terms as a Mesa council member and vice mayor, I was a strong advocate for Arizona to adopt the rubberized asphalt process, which significantly reduced noise complaints to my council office and to the city and made living next to the freeway bearable. I have been in my home since late 1982, and I and my neighbors have endured noise and dust issues over that time. After rubberized asphalt was first used, our quality of life was significantly increased. Elected policymakers knew at the time of adoption that over time, repairs or replacement to the asphalt surface would be a necessary operation and maintenance cost. We never dreamed that ADOT would adopt a diamond grinding process that actually would degrade the freeway concrete and ultimately accelerate the timing of full freeway surface replacement. Thank you for considering my comment. End comment. Our second comment comes from Kevin Thompson of Mesa. I will begin comment. I hope you have had an opportunity to read through the document that we sent in relation to agenda item 4. As you will notice, there are many issues that have not been discussed with you or shared with you, leading you to make a not fully informed decision that will have long-lasting impacts on our communities. There are environmental, health, safety, and cost implications associated with diamond grinding in which you all should be made aware. I ask that you vote no to expand the diamond grinding program by ADOT and instead commission an unbiased report that looks at all of the issues and not just a Band-Aid fix to solve an immediate funding issue. As Arizonans, we have always been proud of our freeways, especially when compared to those in neighboring states. Now, however, with ADOT's laissez-faire approach to policy associated with the maintenance of our freeways, generations will continue to fund not the new construction of roads, but the replacement of roads that have been ground beyond repair. MAG has upheld their end to the Prop 400 deal by expanding, widening, and extending freeways across Maricopa County. It's now time for ADOT to uphold theirs. Please vote no on agenda item 4. End comment. Our third comment comes from Larry Schofield of Mesa. I will begin comment. Good morning, my name is Larry Schofield and I work in the concrete industry and have lived most of my life in the East Valley. I would like to thank the council for enduring my comments over time and your willingness to continue investigating options. In reviewing the additional study areas in agenda item 4, I noticed the last 2 bullets only pertain to diamond grinding. Many may believe that the I-10 PM10 tunnel study quantified the PM10 generation of asphalt rubber. However, this is an inaccurate assumption. The testing was conducted on a 9-day-old asphalt rubber surface, which hardly represents its behavior over time. For example, asphalt rubber roughness can increase tenfold from the 9-day level and tire pavement noise generation can double. Assuming the 9-day PM10 levels are meaningful is a mistake. The tunnel study was a unique and clever use of the tunnel. However, it also prevents comparison to network level conditions over time. Any PM10 study should include cradle to grave analysis. That is the PM10 generation at the tire recycling facility in Mesa, the PM10 tire wear generation, the PM10 generation during raveling of the asphalt rubber surface at joints and cracks and during milling and removal. Mesa recently got exposed to the PM10 issues from removal as well as the fly rock on windshields. Although I believe the reliability of PM10 measurements under open flow conditions is tenuous at best, the same method should be used for both surface types and not an open flow tunnel measurement comparison made. And the elephant in the room is still that the windshield property damage that occurs with the strategy, and it continues to go unstudied. Thank you in advance for your consideration and comment. Our fourth comment comes from Nick Myers of Queen Creek. I will begin comment. Diamond grinding project. Hello, members of the MAG Transportation Policy Committee. For the record, my name is Nick Myers. While I am a policy advisor at the Arizona Corporation Commission and a statewide political candidate, I come to you today representing myself. I live in Pinal County, but spend a significant amount of time traveling the freeway system in Maricopa County, as you might imagine. I have also worked diligently to create an environment in which businesses want to come to our state to operate. The recent diamond grinding of the roads is horrible from a user comfort standpoint, inconsistent with our vision as a state, and presents a safety concern. Diamond grinding has turned the roads into something I would expect to see in a third world country. The road noise has tripled from my perspective. They have become rough to the point that it is almost nauseating. There is a constant barrage of rocks being thrown from other cars, and to top it all off, it is unsightly to the point where I have called it ugly. We have been actively trying as a state to provide a more business-friendly environment, and this is the first impression provide to people stepping off a plane to visit our great state. I would argue that it is not the vision we want or need to portray to prospective investors, clients, and customers that want to spend money in our economy. Last, this is a safety concern. Given the increase in rocks hitting my vehicle, I can only imagine the discomfort and concerns a motorcyclist would have. Then add on the horrible pavement conditions, additional potholes, inconsistencies in the pavement, increased dust, etc. I cannot envision a scenario where this can be considered a safer traffic environment. Diamond grinding has undone the progress we have seen in our roadways. It has not provided any safety, convenience, aesthetic, or health benefits, and has instead made all those things significantly worse. Please consider removing this horrible policy decision and let Arizona get back to something that leaves a much better impression of our beautiful state. Thank you for your time, Nick. End comment. This concludes public comment.
Thank you. So next on our agenda is the approval of consent agenda. This includes items 3A through 3F. Do any members of TPC have questions or would like a presentation from any of the items? Hearing none, can I have a motion to recommend approval of items 3A through 3F?
So moved, Eric Orsborn.
A motion? Is there a
Yeah,
second?
motion to approve.
I got it. Is there a second?
Second, Bridget Peterson.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion of this motion? Hearing none, staff, please take a roll of the vote.
Thank you, Chair and members of the Transportation Policy Committee. I will go down the list of members. Please unmute and indicate how you vote. Mayor Barney,
Aye.
thank you. Councilmember Binsbacher,
Aye.
thank you. Jen Daniels,
Aye.
thank you. Doug DeCluson, Councilmember Durham,
Doug DeClusen, I apologize.
okay,
Tom Durham, aye.
thank you. Mayor Giles,
Aye.
thank you. Mayor Hall,
Aye.
thank you. Charles Hugh Mantle,
Aye.
thank you. Mayor Orsborn,
Aye.
thank you. Mayor Bridget Peterson,
Yeah.
Mark Reardon,
Aye.
thank you. Supervisor Sellers,
Aye.
thank you. Mayor Wires,
Aye.
thank you. Mayor Weiss,
Aye.
thank you. Mayor Woods,
Aye.
thank you. Mayor Bridget Peterson,
Aye.
thank you. And Chair, how do you vote?
Yes,
Thank you. The motion carries unanimously.
This is Mayor Price. I vote aye as well.
Thank you, Mayor Price.
thank you, Mayor Price. Our next item, item number 4, I think we want to skip that one, is the Diamond Grind Pilot Program Update. Ag Transportation Economic and Finance Manager, John Bowen, will provide a report. John.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, members of TPC. Happy to be here today to give you an update on the Diamond Grind Pilot Program. Next slide, please. Before I get started, I do want to note that I am joined today by Randy Everett, ADOT Central District Administrator, who will be available in case there are specific questions after the presentation. If you recall, back in June of 2020, the MAG Regional Council approved the Diamond Grind Pilot Program. As part of that action, scopes of 3 projects that were included in the Regional Freeway Program were modified to include the Diamond Grind surface treatment. Those 3 projects include widening of the Loop 101 Price Freeway between Baseline and Loop 202, widening of the Loop 101 Pima Freeway between I-17 and Pima Road, as well as widening of Loop 101 Agua Frias from 75th over to I-17. 2 of those 3 projects have since been completed and open to traffic, with the 3rd project in final design. Next slide, please. This really came about, the conversation in earnest really began in 2018 and 2019. As part of that, increased attention and public complaints were received throughout the regional freeway system as the existing rubberized asphalt that was laid throughout the system began to deteriorate. That is, really most of that asphalt was installed as part of the Proposition 300 program. So that's really when the region's freeway network was built out prior to Prop 400, and towards 2018, 2019, much of that asphalt, which was laid in the early 2000s, was getting beyond the end of its useful life. This problem really was exacerbated in the spring of 2020. If you recall, there were really heavy rains that year. Certainly that caused an influx of attention towards the condition of the regional freeway system and a significant amount of public complaints. While there was money set aside in both Prop 300 and Prop 400 to construct and widen the regional freeway system, there has been no dedicated funding source for the capital cost to replace rubberized asphalt. As a result, ADOT and MAG partnered on a study to look at possible alternatives, concrete-based alternatives to rubberized asphalt that would continue to reduce freeway noise, but would have lower overall life cycle costs. Next slide, please. Do want to emphasize that this conversation in particular is top of mind because we do have challenges coming, and we've already started to see the results of some of those challenges. Those of you that have paid attention to the news might have heard some of the issues out on US 60 out in the East Valley, where recently ADOT, because of the condition of the rubberized asphalt, ADOT had to go in, mill that rubberized asphalt, and there's currently no funding available to do any supplemental diamond grind work. We do anticipate that this will continue to be a bigger and bigger problem as the existing rubberized asphalt ages. That's one of the reasons why in the Prop 400 extension investment plan, funding has been set aside for the capital rehabilitation of some of this asphalt. But certainly we do expect that particularly throughout some sections of the freeway, that rubberized asphalt will continue to deteriorate further. Next slide, please. So as part of the Diamond Grind pilot program that was approved by Regional Council back in 2020, ADOT agreed to assess 3 different factors. The first being the life cycle costs that we've briefly touched on. Second being the quality of ride, and then finally public acceptance of a ground concrete surface. Public here is used to seeing rubberized asphalt, and so this does represent a significant change from what they have been used to. Do want to note that freeway noise considerations, which we've been focused on over the course of the last year, would fall into that third criteria, the public acceptance. Next slide, please. So over the course of the last year, we have been very focused on the noise element of the change from rubberized asphalt to diamond grind. That really was initiated by this committee last February when we provided an update on the diamond grind pilot program. In response to a lot of the complaints that we received along the Loop 101 Price Freeway corridor, the committee that requested that MAG conduct an independent noise study to assess noise levels along that corridor, comparing that corridor from when it was rubberized asphalt to the current diamond grind. As you recall, we worked with Volpe National Transportation System Center to conduct this study. Next slide, please. We presented those findings back in November, so I won't go over these in detail, but I do want to highlight 2 of them, which is that the study found that when we go and replace aged rubberized asphalt like we had done on the Loop 101 Price, and like we do anticipate doing with other corridors throughout the system, it does not result in an increase in noise levels, nor did we find it produces a more annoying pitch. In fact, what we found overall is that replacing that aged rubberized asphalt with diamond grind actually provides a net benefit when you're looking at sound levels. Next slide, please. So while we have focused heavily on the noise aspect over the last year or so, today's presentation, we wanted to focus on other factors as part of the diamond grind criteria, specifically looking at the life cycle costs as well as the quality of ride metrics. Next slide, please. So last year, ADOT published a study that looked at the cost savings associated with diamond grind versus rubberized asphalt. In this paper, there's a high-level overview of a number of different elements, including some of the program evaluation criteria that I had previously mentioned. Next slide, please. So in terms of ride quality, really what ADOT found based on testing in the system is that the diamond grind surface treatment is comparable to, if not better than, new rubberized asphalt overlay. So one of the metrics that they looked at was what's called the International Roughness Index. That's a measure to actually determine how smooth, if you will, the ride on the freeway will be. As you can see, new diamond grind is 28 and a new rubberized asphalt is 34. It's important to note that the lower the number, the smoother the ride. I do also want to mention that these 2 numbers on the screen represent new conditions of both. With diamond grind, because it's a concrete base and that base is harder, we don't anticipate a lot of change over time versus rubberized asphalt does begin to crack, pothole. So if you were to compare some of the aged rubberized asphalt, you would certainly notice a significant difference in ride quality relative to the diamond grind treatment. And certainly you can experience this yourself if you're driving along the 101. There's certain sections of the Pima freeway with aged rubberized asphalt with a bumpy ride relative to the new diamond grind that's there. Next slide, please. Another metric that ADOT looked at was safety. So for this particular metric, they specifically focused at stopping times on the pavement under wet conditions. And what they found is that with new diamond grinds, there's actually a higher level of friction, so cars are able to stop better. This level of friction is more than the new rubberized asphalt, and then significantly more than the aged rubberized asphalt, which again would be consistent with expectations when you consider the raveling, the potholing, and all the cracks associated with that. Next slide, please. Then finally, the last item I wanted to touch on today is the cost component. So following the approval of the Prop 400 extension investment plan, we had a better idea of where some of the future capital projects would occur and really what our network would look like in 2050. So ADOT, in partnership with MAG, we were an active partner on the study, completed a comprehensive cost analysis. What we did is we actually looked segment by segment throughout the region's freeway system between now and 2050 to estimate a cost if we were to go with rubberized asphalt versus if we were to go with a diamond grind treatment. Under this, we consider both the capital costs as well as the maintenance costs. And with the maintenance costs, again, we assumed the standard maintenance work and the standard maintenance schedule. We also considered those future capacity projects. So when we look towards the future, we included the State Route 30s of the world, the State Route 24s of the world. That was all rolled into this analysis. Next slide, please. And what we found is that the cost to go with rubberized asphalt is approximately $1.5 billion more than if we were to use a diamond grind surface treatment. That 1.5 billion is in current year dollars, so it is not inflated. We provide the specific breakdown between the two types below, but I think the important emphasis point, or really what's driving the cost difference, is as you look at rubberized asphalt, you have to go through and replace that every 10 years. And so that represents a major capital project, and over time that adds up. That's relative to diamond grind, which we assume that every 15 years you would need to go in and do a new diamond grind treatment. So that's really what's causing the cost increase of rubberized asphalt over diamond grind. Next slide, please. So in terms of next steps, we are here before you today recommending that we expand the diamond grind pilot project to all the Prop 400 freeway projects that are funded through the regional freeway program where feasible. And so this would give us, I think, a couple important things. Number one, it would give us more data point. I think it's clear from our noise presentation that was given last year, we want to continue to study this issue. We want to continue to understand the differences. This would allow us actual before and after comparisons of noise and certainly would provide a benefit. Secondly, as I had mentioned, and as we'll talk a little bit about more here in this next agenda item, we do set aside funding for capital rehabilitation of pavement as part of the Prop 400 extension investment program. This direction would allow us to jumpstart some of those efforts. So looking, for instance, at the US 60, where ADOT recently completed a mill and leave. With this direction, we feel like we could work with ADOT to see if we can identify opportunities to do a diamond grind surface treatment and really get some of that work started so that when ADOT has to go in and mill off the aged rubberized asphalt, because of safety reasons, we would be able to come through with a diamond grind surface treatment. We do want to couple this expansion with continued study. We continue to acknowledge how important this decision is, all the different attributes. With your recommended approval today, we would proceed with continued independent noise study along the corridors. We are currently working with the ADOT Research Center to look at the impact of the switch to diamond grind on PM10 emissions. So again, look at both rubberized asphalt component of that as well as the diamond grind. And then, of course, as requested at the last TPC meeting, look at what the potential impact of the switch from rubberized asphalt to diamond grind would have on the urban heat island. Next slide, please. So with that, Mr. Chairman, that completes my presentation. I stand by to answer any questions, and I do have Randy Everett here available as well. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Questions?
Mr. Chairman, Mayor Wires.
Mayor Wires.
Yeah, I've been listening to this for, God, I don't even know how long anymore. It seems like forever. But the one thing that I don't understand is the two comparisons that all of us are being asked to look at is diamond grind or rubberized, but not once in the last 6 years that I can think of have I ever been given a comparison of the standard pavement, just regular old pavement. The cost, how that would be compared with diamond grind or rubberized. I do happen to like the rubberized a lot. I can tell you from my experience on a motorcycle, and then also my wife's got a small BMW with a soft top convertible, and just the difference in the noise. I understand the cost, but I'd like to understand what if we didn't do either one of those and we did just a standard pavement. I know that it's going to wear out, but I'm getting bombarded from lots of people that they absolutely do not want the diamond grind. So I'd like to know what the comparison would be with the standard pavement, so we have something else to compare. You know, it's not door A or door B, but I'd like a door C choice.
So, Mr. Chairman, Mayor Wires, perhaps for clarification, looking at some sort of asphalt type treatment on top of the freeway, but not necessarily rubberized asphalt. Do I understand that correctly?
Mr. Chairman, exactly the way we used to do it before people wanted rubberized to make it quieter. I understand that it's a compromise. It's not the diamond grind, it's not the rubberized, but would it be something in between? And could it be something in between cost-wise?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman, Mayor Wires, certainly. So, you know, to sort of go back in time, if you will, you know, with the construction of the regional freeway system back in 2002, 2003, you know, ADOT was exploring various treatments. All the freeway or most of the regional freeway network is built with a concrete base. And so at the time, in response to some of the noise complaints, they were investigating various concrete treatments. So if you leave concrete untreated, it can be quite loud, if you will. And so ADOT was assessing the different concrete treatments at the time, as well as, of course, the rubberized asphalt. And with the governor's mandate, ended up going with rubberized asphalt. But Mayor Wires, we can certainly bring back additional information about other options, if you will, and sort of detail about why we're down to these two choices.
Okay, and Mr. Chairman, for me, without having that third option, I'm going to be a no vote when you call for a roll until we have that, because I do think that could be an alternative until our legislature decides to have an opportunity to get more tax revenues to pay for this stuff to have rubberized. But to me, the diamond grind and what my citizens continually have been telling me by the dozens, I just can't support diamond grind right now. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, it's Ken Weiss.
Mayor Weiss.
I have to agree with my colleague from Glendale. When I see the amount of complaints, over 200 complaints in your city, in Mesa and Tempe, when I hear about issues on the 101 in Phoenix, these aren't people who are overreacting to a situation. These are people who have genuine concerns. And I can tell you that living less than a half a mile from I-10 for 16 years, I understand traffic noise along I-10. I get it. But I've driven the areas that are the ones of most concern, and even in the vehicle, it's louder. I had done some research prior to this meeting on a study that was done in 2009. It was an international study that took in road noise from, I think, 6 or 7 different nations. And what they talked about was diamond grinding is a solution to noise abatement. But one of the things that struck me was when they talked about building concrete roads, and while the concrete was still pliable, coming in and cutting grooves in the road for water runoff and everything, what they found was that if the grooves were not randomized in their width, that it created a noise that had a tone that was, for lack of a better term, offensive to a lot of people. When I hear the complaints from, and when I read about the complaints from the people that live in the East Valley and in the West Valley, the tone of the noise is an issue. Yes, the level of the noise is an issue, but it's the tone and the whining. And I'm wondering if diamond grinding, while in some ways reducing noise, doesn't have that tonal effect that people are finding objectionable. I agree with Jerry. I think we need to have an alternative, and I will be voting against moving forward with the diamond grinding.
Thank you. Other comments?
Mr. Chair, this is Mayor Hall.
Mayor Hall.
Yeah, John, I know you spent a lot of time on this, and we appreciate it. I'm just curious as to what our neighboring states are doing. Have you looked into what Caltrans is doing in California, for instance? Because I understand the last time I was over there, their new Freeway 210 is rubberized asphalt. And I'm wondering why they made that decision. And you know, they're like the transportation capital of the world almost with cars. So I'm sure they've done a lot of analysis on noise and life cycle costs and all that. So, and also Nevada. I understand Nevada is abandoned diamond grinding, but they're just doing rubberized asphalt in Las Vegas. So I'm just curious as to what you could say about that.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman, Mayor Hall. So certainly based on the research we've done so far and the conversations we've had, it's entirely situational. So in some cases, states have tended to go with rubberized asphalt because the existing condition of their concrete doesn't support, you know, additional work, if you will. And so they go with a rubberized asphalt overlay to preserve the life of that sub base. In other instances, the sub bases themselves are actually constructed with asphalt. And so you don't get the opportunity to go with a concrete based solution. But Mayor Hall, we would certainly be happy to put something together that provides additional detail about what other states and regions are doing.
Yeah, I would appreciate that, John. And because I you know, with the maintenance of the rubberized asphalt, isn't there supposed to be like a fog seal? Isn't that the industry standard to do a fog seal like at 5 years or something to extend the life?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, Mayor Hall, that's correct. So currently ADOT does a fog seal every 3 to 4 years. So in fact, they do. Yeah, okay. And a lot of, Mr. Chairman, Mayor Hall, a lot of the weekend closures that you do see throughout the system, if you get the ADOT alerts, you'll see, you know, interstate so-and-so or state route so-and-so is closed for the weekend. A lot of times those closures are actually related to the fog seal process. And then the only other thing I'll add in terms of our cost analysis, we did factor in a fog seal every 3 years.
I see. Okay. And what about the maintenance of diamond grinding?
Mr. Chairman, Mayor Hall, so diamond grind does require annual maintenance. So they go out there and they fix, you know, cracks or issues. And so that is an upkeep on a regular basis, but it's less of a comprehensive effort, if you will, in terms of treating the entirety of a corridor.
And you built that into the life cycle cost?
That's correct. All
right. Well, the way I'm at right now, John, is I have to vote no on this. I've heard so many comments from people in the East Valley, especially, and I don't spend a lot of time over there, but I have friends over there, and they hate the diamond grind from a sound standpoint. They really do. And I think where there's smoke, there's fire, you know, that we really need to do a really, really good job of sound analysis on this thing. And I agree with Jerry. Jerry's, he's probably getting a lot off the 101 comments, you know, I guess, and from his residents. But 303 is rubberized, so I love it, you know, and it's quiet, and it's quiet when you're in the car. It's quiet when you're in a residence near the freeway. So I like rubberized asphalt. I really do. I'm a big fan. So anyway, I'm going to vote no, Mr. Chair. So
Thank you, Mayor Hall. Other comments?
Mr. Chair,
Mayor Giles.
thank you. I think a lot of the comments that are coming from the public in the East Valley relate to the current really bad condition of US 60. And there's confusion over, you know, the real remilling that was done on that road. And folks are thinking, well, oh, this is diamond grind and this is horrible. I mean, John, can you talk to that? Well, what are the chances that something more tolerable is going to happen on the 60, so that we can help people understand that that's not what we're endorsing as what we want the status quo to be going forward?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman, Mayor Giles. Excellent point. So the work, and I think a lot of the attention that you saw over the work on the US 60. So that's what's known as a mill and leave. So again, the rubberized asphalt that covered that section had deteriorated to the point where there were safety concerns that forced ADOT to go out, mill off the rubberized asphalt, and then leave it essentially in the condition that it is. So that is very different than a diamond grind surface treatment, which, you know, comes in, it's a much more polished, cleaner look, if you will, provides the additional noise attenuation benefits, and is smoother. And so, you know, to Mayor Giles's point, that's very different than a diamond grind treatment. I think, you know, looking forward from a regional perspective, the big challenge that we have is we're going to see more spots of the system end up like where the US 60 is in the near term. So as pavement reaches a certain age, it does become to unravel, it does become to chip, it does become to break off. And so ADOT will be forced to make these operational decisions to go and remove it. And so really the conversation we're having here today is how to address that once it's removed. We could certainly invest funding to put down rubberized asphalt. As I noted, that's significantly more expensive. It does require that the region would make a continued investment to keep that up. Or alternatively, we could go with a diamond grind surface treatment.
Mr. Chairman, Jack Sellers.
Mr. Sellers.
It sounds to me like there's some questions that some people need to have answers to before we move forward. So I'm suggesting that perhaps we should continue this item.
Mr. Sellers, I don't disagree with you, but I'd like to make sure that staff has all the questions to pursue.
Okay.
And so, I'm thinking the same thing, but I do want to continue the conversation to make sure that they can adequately follow up and give us the information that we will need to be able to vote on this.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Additional questions or comments?
Mr. Mayor.
I apologize. I lost my internet there for a minute. Hopefully I didn't miss more than the end of Mayor Giles' comments. I'm sorry, who else wanted to say something?
Chair Hartkeith's Jen Daniels.
Jen Daniels, hello.
Thank you. Just a couple questions. This last summer, we did receive a presentation from ADOT and from John, specifically calling out some additional sections of roadway that had been or were being programmed to be diamond ground outside of our pilot. Has there been any analysis of those roadways, and do we have any data to share?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Daniels. So there are two roadways that would fall under that category. So the first is I-10 from roughly 19th Avenue out to Avondale Boulevard. So that project is under construction currently, so it's not finished yet. The second is I-17, and that is from approximately Dunlap north to Pinnacle Peak, perhaps the Loop 101. That section is one of those sections that ADOT has actually had to go and do a mill and leave on. And so that's the second area where ADOT would move forward with a diamond grind. That project has not started construction yet.
Thank you. That's a good update. I just thought I'd, because I'm on State Transportation Board and we are looking comprehensively at the system across the state. And there was a comment earlier about the legislature needing to fund additional funds for our region. It behooves us to say, and I will start with, I am not in favor of diamond grinding. I don't like the surface treatment. I drive on it very, very often. I'm sure there's smarter people with data, but my personal experience has been that it is not a better experience for the user. That being sound, the quantity of debris that I've experienced on some of those roadways as well, or sections of roadway. In addition to, there is an aesthetic component of that for me, as well as the ability to see from a safety perspective, the individual lanes. It has been, I think, more difficult from a user experience. So I'll preface all of my comments by saying that, starting with that, one thing that I think we need to remember is that as a region, this would be a surface treatment above and beyond what would be considered ADOT's standard treatment, which in my mind says that as a region, if we choose this, we need to fund this regionally as well. And I know we're going through our Prop 400 extension experience right now at the legislature. And, but I think it's really important to note that even diamond grinding would go above and beyond what the standard surface treatment would be from a state perspective or a statewide perspective. And if I can clarify that comment just a little bit further, there are certain regions of our state that would probably benefit from something like rubberized asphalt, but because that is not the state's standard when it comes to surface treatment, it is a higher standard. Those areas are not receiving that type of treatment. So from a funding perspective, if we determine that we want to move forward as a group, maybe not today, but at a future date, we also need, in my opinion, to fund the rubberized asphalt component regionally as well. So I just put that out there for all of us to consider.
Thank you. Additional comments? I see a hand, but I cannot tell on my computer who that is.
Yeah, Mark Reardon, Mr. Chairman. I would echo the concerns broadly that were addressed today. I share most or all of them. I also had a concern that I think I expressed last time. I'm still not convinced that we have the cost numbers and comparisons dialed in. On various presentations, they have jumped around considerably at times, and maybe others are convinced and have seen things I haven't, but I'm not yet convinced that we have the cost comparisons down. I would also ask this, and I don't know, John, as you go forward, assuming this went forward and we looked at things like the heat island effect, I guess maybe it's moot now, but I would want to know what that would look like and how and who and what the process is for actually studying that and who does that. Again, that would be my concern. Maybe it's moot now, or maybe it will become moot, but I would have that concern if we move forward.
Thank you. Are there, I think we're hearing a strong, let's get some more questions. So let me ask this question to this august board here. Are there other specific things that you would like to know specifically that have not been asked? I know I've got 3 on my list here that before we would want John or Meg to pursue. We're getting some good comments, but what else would you like to know staff to pursue before we vote on this?
Chairman Harkey, Corey Woods has his hand up as well as I do, Mayor Price, but I think that perhaps he could also lend to that.
Great, that would be good. So why don't we go, again, I cannot see whose hand's up. I had to switch to my cell phone here. Maybe Mayor Woods, then Mayor Price, if you'd like to share your comments, questions.
No, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Really appreciate it. From my perspective, from all, I definitely concur with a lot of the statements that have been made by the other folks on this call, given a lot of the questions and concerns that have been raised by folks in our South Tempe neighborhoods where the diamond grinding has been applied as opposed to the rubberized asphalt. I understand the concern about, that some of the data that's been collected, talking about how it actually isn't increasing the noise. But one of the things that I heard, Mayor Weiss talk about, which is really what I frankly have heard from a lot of our residents, it may not be louder specifically when it comes to decibel levels, but it might be producing a kind of sound that's off-putting to the people who are directly adjacent to where this treatment has been installed. And so from my perspective, I definitely share in a lot of the questions and concerns that have been raised by others on this call and would like that additional information, because I just would not want to see any other. It's one thing if we're simply just talking about diamond grinding on a freeway that's not directly adjacent to neighborhoods and people and population centers. But I think it's very, very different. We've seen different results for the folks who've had it put in where there are directly neighbors adjacent to it. So from my perspective, I share in all the questions and concerns, would definitely like those answered. And I would almost love if we could frankly, sort of table this item and consider it at a later date once we've actually had the opportunity to receive and review that information.
Mayor Price, do you have additional questions as well?
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Just to echo obviously what's been said, I don't want to repeat the same things, but this does come down to two major issues, and it's cost and the costs that it's going to cost us moving forward, what monies we have set aside to pay for this, and clearly safety. And so, I think that we really have to go back and focus on those costs. I'd really like to see that we have maybe a MAG meeting where instead of having several things on the agenda, we just talk about this item and this item only, so that we can go into depth on it, have lots of questions answered. I hesitate on this one because as I see a system, and I really appreciate Ms. Daniels' comments, as the statewide standard and the system, do we need to be doing something similar to ADOT? Do we need to be doing something above and beyond ADOT? And if we choose to do something above and beyond ADOT, that's excellent. But, what section of our roads are we going to just determine that with our limited resources, even in Prop 400 expansion, that we're going to say we only have so much money. So, this section of the valley and that section of the valley are going to have these expanded, wonderful features of the rubberized asphalt, but the others are going to have to just wear another 10 years because we don't have money for that. And I'm not sure that's a fair proposition to the entire region. So, we really do need to have those numbers dialed in so that we know what we're doing when we make this decision. Thanks. And I know that Ms. Binsbacher has her hand up as well.
All right, Ms. Binsbacher.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Couple things. I appreciate all the questions. I do agree that additional information is necessary. I have a question that I don't think I've heard come up. There's a huge cost difference, if I remember correctly, $1.5 billion. So this is a really critical decision. But if we were to go with the rubberized asphalt with the more expensive option, do we run the risk of down the road not having enough to complete all of the projects currently designated in the Prop 400 extension? That's one question I have that could be maybe part of the follow-up with additional information. The other one is I'm a little confused by the requested action. So this says, the screen I'm looking at right now says that this is to expand the diamond grind pilot program, but yet in a previous slide, it was the action to approve would also mean committing to all of the Prop 400E programs currently defined. So I'm a little unclear on that. It may not be relevant if we choose to table this until we get further information. Those are my comments. Thank you.
John, could you address her last question in specific? That's not a research question, but just the action here to expand, what exactly, is that in essence a carte blanche to go through, or can you give the parameters of that expansion?
Yeah, certainly, Mr. Chairman, Councilmember Binsbacher. So a couple notes. So on the cost, and we can certainly bring this back with additional detail. We do not have enough costs, or we do not have enough funding set aside as part of the extension that we would be able to do a rubberized asphalt overlay over 10 years. And so that would either mean a reduction in projects, potentially pushing certain projects out, rescoping, or we can certainly work through the various alternatives. But we can provide that answer now. In terms of the requested action, what we're seeking today, and again, certainly based on the feedback, it sounds like additional detail will be needed, would be to expand the Diamond Grind pilot program to just those projects that are funded through the Prop 400 freeway program. So to use a Diamond Grind surface treatment on those remaining projects. The thought is also that if the Diamond Grind pilot program is expanded, we could potentially look at using that surface treatment on other areas of the system to jumpstart the pavement rehabilitation component funded in the extension. So, just to underscore, we are going to see problems in the very near term where the existing rubberized asphalt continues to chip up, deteriorate, and ADOT will have to make an operational decision to mill and leave it unless the region decides to set forth money for either rubberized asphalt or a diamond grind. So hopefully, Ms. Binsbacher, that provides clarification.
Thank you.
And
I apologize for inserting myself again on this.
Go ahead, Jen Daniels.
Couldn't we actually already make the argument that the Diamond Grind pilot has already been expanded based on ADOT's without a vote by this body?
Mr. Chairman, Ms. Daniels, I think from our perspective, from a MAG perspective, this would enable the use of the funding allocated to the regional freeway program to move forward with the Diamond Grind. So the only 3 projects funded through the regional freeway program have been approved as part of that pilot program.
Okay, so it's really about funding source.
Right.
It's not really about expanding the pilot. It's just about utilizing the funding.
Ms. Daniels, members of the TPC, yes, it's about sort of the who retains the decisions over the allocation of funding, if you will.
Well, then, I mean, with all due respect, John, I think the requested action or recommended approval to expand the diamond grinding pilot is not totally what we're really discussing at this point. We're just discussing, what we're really discussing is a policy level decision to move to diamond grinding.
Mr. Chairman, members of the TPC, potentially, I think the way we see it is that we don't have enough information for a long-term commitment to move to diamond grind. So even if we did expand the use of diamond grind in those projects funded through the regional freeway program, it would still be under study and analysis, and a future decision would need to be made.
So from what I'm hearing, we don't have enough money in our current program to utilize rubberized asphalt. We'd like to reprogram the dollars within the regional fund to use diamond grinding, but we don't really know long-term what our policy level decision is from a regional perspective.
Ms. Daniels, members of the TPC. So what we are looking at today is action to expand the use of diamond grind on those projects funded through the Regional Freeway Program. Continue to study it. We know that in the future, the region's going to have to decide how it wants to invest in some of these pavement surface treatments. And so I think that's the open question. We did set aside some money, 750 million as part of the extension that, based on our cost analysis that we presented today, that would cover the cost to do diamond grind throughout the system. That would not cover the cost if the region chose to continue to invest in rubberized asphalt.
That makes a lot more sense to me. Thank you, John, for clarifying all of those different things. At this point, I would actually make the recommendation that this body make no determination to spend additional dollars until we make a policy level decision about what we really want as a region. And as stated earlier, I think by one of the mayors, esteemed mayors of the Valley, my recommendation is that we don't take any action on this today, but instead move forward with one meeting that would allow us to make a policy level decision. I don't think piecemealing this is actually going to be a long-term benefit to the region.
Thank you, Jen Daniels. I have some questions unless others do. So maybe I'll just throw mine in now. I've got three based on your presentation, John, and maybe based on other comments that have also been coming through in the past. My first question is, I'm not looking to assign blame, but I am looking to better understand when the rubberized asphalt program came in. You had mentioned that there was funding to put it down, but not funding to maintain. Again, I'm zero interest in assigning blame, but I'm just curious in the whole process. I know at cities, we look at ongoing as well as one time before we approve one time. And so in the future, I'd love to better understand what led to the decision of this. And I do understand the difference. I somewhat understand the difference between MAG's responsibilities and ADOT's concerning maintenance. But before we make this decision, I do have a question related that Jen Daniels had brought up, that even continuing diamond grind is an enhanced benefit. So who would pick up the maintenance cost of this in 10 or 15 years that you mentioned? So that would be my second question. Again, first is, what was the policy and how did we come to the decision of funding but not maintaining cost? And then secondly, the unfunded cost of diamond grind in 15 years, or that would take us to 40, but you mentioned this costs out to 50. And then in that process, only 0.2 million set aside for that whole process. Yet we're going to be digging into the base once with this, probably once more, and maybe a third time. And thirdly, you had mentioned the differences between the stopping. You mentioned comparisons of new and old asphalt and new diamond grind, but you didn't mention old diamond grind. So in another 10 years, is there some other thing that we would need to know, or councils at the time would need to know, related to what does stopping look like on an old diamond grind surface as opposed to new? So you would only mention three. So I would like those to also get some answers before I'm willing to weigh a yes and no. But my fourth question, based upon everybody else's comments right now, can we just defer this and then set this aside for a longer? Do we need a motion to redo just to delay this, or do we need to vote yes or no? I want to make sure that we're doing the right thing for this particular item since it is on action. So research on the first three, but what is the appropriate thing where it's clear that I don't think this is moving forward, but how do we best move on that?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Harkey, members of the TBC. I think from my perspective, we have the information, the questions we need answered. We will work on answering those. we can bring those back forth at a later point in time. We do not need action today. I think, you know, certainly the discussion gives us direction we need to move forward, which is move forward with status quo. Don't change anything, but this discussion certainly has been helpful in terms of additional information needed.
Mr. Chairman, this is Mayor Wires.
Mayor Wires.
Yes, sir. Two things. One is I haven't heard any other discussion about my question on a third alternative, just simply going back with regular pavement. I think we all need to have that opportunity to look at a possibility with money being as tight as it is. And I think to your other question, I think if I simply make a motion to table this, I think is all that you really need.
So to your first question, I presume and assume that John would be coming back with your third question on there, and we could certainly make a motion to table this and have staff bring that, and we could bring this back at a future meeting with the other recommendations.
Okay, sir. I actually did make that motion.
I'll second it.
Oh, all right. We have a second. Is that by Charles Humantle?
Yes, it is.
All right, motion and a second. So the motion is to table this. So a yes vote is to table this at this point. Let's proceed with polling the council.
Thank you, Chair and members of the Transportation Policy Committee. I will go down the
Committee,
list of
thank
members.
you.
Please unmute and indicate how you vote. Mayor Barney.
I get to be first, huh? Aye.
Thank you. Councilmember Binsbacher.
Aye.
Thank you. Jen Daniels.
Aye.
Thank you. Doug DeCluson.
Aye.
Thank you. Councilmember Durham.
Aye.
Thank you. Mayor Gallego.
Aye.
Thank you. Mayor Giles.
Aye.
Thank you. Mayor Hall.
No.
Thank you. Charles Humantle.
Aye.
Thank you. Mayor Orsborn.
Aye.
Thank you. Mayor Bridget Peterson.
Aye.
Thank you. Mayor Price.
Aye.
Thank you. Mark Reardon.
Aye.
Thank you. Supervisor Sellers.
Aye.
Thank you. Mayor Wires.
Aye.
Thank you. Mayor Weiss.
Aye.
Thank you. Mayor Woods.
Aye.
Thank you. And Chair, how do you vote?
Aye.
Thank you. Is there anyone that I missed? Thank you. The motion carries.
All right, so we will work with MAG staff to meet these questions, and I presume by tabling this, there was also the request to have a deeper dive session with us, that it would be an agenda by itself. We can pursue that and see what that looks like. Item number 5 is an Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act overview of the regional funding impacts presented by MAG Transportation Economic and Finance Program Manager, John Bowen. John, you're on again.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Happy to talk about this item with you here today. So this is something that we had previously updated the committee on a couple times. Certainly wanted to bring forth additional information once we have it. And next slide, please. So really, we're here today to give an overview of the new federal infrastructure bill. So as we've talked about over the last couple of years, we've really focused on the half-cent sales tax component, of course, as we get ready for the extension of Proposition 400. Though as we've developed that plan and as we've talked about at length, there's actually additional funding sources that flow to the region that make all these transportation investments possible. So today, this presentation really focuses on the federal component of those investments, including FHWA formula funds, FTA formula funds, and then federal discretionary funds. Next slide, please. So the new Transportation Investment Act was signed into law back in November 2021. That act is known as IIJA, or the Bipartisan Infrastructure Bill, BIL for short. So as I use those acronyms, they are interchangeably. This act replaced the old Surface Transportation Act, what's known as the FAST Act. As we've previously messaged, and certainly as you've heard, this significantly increased the amount of transportation funding that's available over what the previous levels were. In addition, not only did it increase the amount of funding available, but it also created new programs and significantly expanded the amount of discretionary programs that are available for competition on a nationwide basis. Next slide, please. So I first want to focus on the FHWA formula funds. One of the themes of this presentation is that it's still early yet. We don't have all the answers. We don't have all the information. But we certainly felt that it was prudent to provide what information we did have and roadmap some possible options or decision points, if you will, that we see in the future. So in terms of FHWA formula funds, those flow to the region, those flow to our member agencies in a couple of different ways. First, there's those formula funds that flow directly to ADOT. This region sees those formula funding in a couple of different ways. The first is through our regional freeway program. So as we just discussed, the freeway life cycle program, that's our capital investment plan that we have defined. There's also federal formula funds that flow to ADOT, for which they make available for a statewide competitive process. So member agencies throughout the MAG region and throughout the state submit applications and compete for those funds. Examples include safety program, highway safety improvement program, as well as the off-system bridge program. The second formula funds that flow to the region are the FHWA formula funds allocated directly to MAG. So those are the formula funds that are actually allocated through our regional investment plan. We currently use those for programs like active transportation, for ITS, for paving of unpaved roads. And their future use is certainly intertwined in our new investment plan. Next slide, please. So what do we expect with the new infrastructure law? We do expect a fairly significant increase in the formula funding that flows to the freeway program. So again, it's early. When we talk about federal infrastructure law, there's sort of two different components of it. First, there's the infrastructure law itself. So that's what was adopted back in November. And then there's an accompanying law that needs passed, which is the budget authority. And so those two together make up our funding levels. So we have one half of that. We don't quite know where the other half is going to land yet. But our initial staff projections for the freeway program is that we're going to see an increase between $40 and $50 million a year, which is fairly significant. But again, that's just MAG staff estimates. We are awaiting additional detail out of ADOT as they're trying to get their head wrapped around this new law. We also anticipate an increase in the funding available for statewide competitive processes. So currently those two programs, Highway Safety Improvement Program, off-system bridge programs, there's a modest amount of funding that's set aside. Member agencies compete. We do anticipate that amount going up. The new law actually set aside new programs as well that we're very interested in. Those include the carbon reduction program, the resiliency program, and as well as the electric vehicle charging program. That program in particular, I would say, has gotten a lot of attention, particularly from several member agencies. New federal guidance was released last Thursday. We are in the process of understanding what that means, what the potential impacts are. But again, that funding does flow to the state, not the region. Next slide, please. In terms of the MAG allocation, so as we look at the different funding sources that flow to MAG, including Surface Transportation Block Grant Program, CMAQ funds, Transportation Alternatives funds, we are anticipating an increase between 8 and 10 million a year. So a fairly modest amount, though certainly significant, all things considered. There is a new program, there is a new funding source that would be made available to the region. That's the carbon reduction program. We are still awaiting guidance from FHWA, but once we have that, we will work with you and your staff to create a new program to allocate those funds. And of course, establish competitive criteria and figure out how the process flows. Next slide, please. On the FTA formula side, so as we look at FTA formula funds that flow to the region, they flow really to two different areas. So first is the Phoenix Mesa urbanized area, or UZA for short. That's the big one that covers the vast majority of this region. We are anticipating a fairly significant increase, 25 million a year. And then for the Avondale Goodyear, we are anticipating 1.3 million a year. I do want to note, and certainly we'll have future conversations about this with updated federal guidance. It is anticipated that the Avondale Goodyear UZA will be absorbed into the Phoenix Mesa UZA following completion of the 2020 census. So as we get more information, we will message what the impacts are, but did want to call that to your attention. Next slide, please. Finally, talking about discretionary grants, this is an area that has gotten a lot of attention for the past decade or so. There's been a number of different federal discretionary grants available. We have seen some limited success in this region with going and member agencies attaining those grants. As part of the new infrastructure law, the grant programs themselves grows in number. The amount of funding available does grow in number. So certainly of interest, certainly something to keep your eye on. I will caveat or qualify that when we are talking about national discretionary grants, that is generally a very competitive process, very time-intensive application process. So it's very important as member agencies weigh decisions about whether or not to pursue discretionary grants to make sure that they have the resources and time commitment available. Next slide, please. And this is just a high-level table that provides an overview of those discretionary grants. We did provide additional information in your agenda packet. Next slide, please. So we are very much waiting the appropriations bill. At this point in time, we are just speculating, but we did want to provide information for where we do anticipate things going. We do anticipate a significant increase in freeway funding. I think if there's one message point I could leave you with, that really does underscore the need for enabling legislation. That additional funding will really solidify the Prop 400 freeway projects. We are in the process of developing our 2023 annual update. Based on the revenue picture, we do anticipate that some of those projects will be able to slide forward and really set this region up well for the extension of Prop 400 and really be able to move forward with some of those phase one projects. But again, I just want to emphasize that really enhances the need for enabling legislation and getting that across the finish line. We also feel like this funding is an opportunity to look at accelerating elements of the regional investment plan. So as I noted, we are anticipating an increase in the FHWA formula funding to the region. So there might be an opportunity to jumpstart, if you will, certain programs that we have identified in the extension and perhaps starting those in fiscal year 2025 instead of waiting until 2026. So as we get additional information from the feds, we'll certainly bring that back through the committee process for further direction. The transit funding, we have an existing system in place. There are a few more uses, if you will, for that could benefit agencies in the short term. And we do plan on working with the MAG Transit Committee and up through the committee process for additional direction. And then lastly, we are eagerly awaiting federal guidance on some of the new formula programs, particularly the electric vehicle charging program. And we'll await that guidance and determine what it means from a region and how to move forward. Next slide, please. So with that, Mr. Chairman, that concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, John. It does seem like there's more questions beyond the questions that we're going to ask you today yet to be decided, and we understand that. Questions from the committee? Okay.
Mayor Harkey?
Mayor Gallego.
Yes. First question, will you talk about how we are changing staffing at MAG to make sure we have the folks ready to compete for these programs or to submit our applications?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mayor Gallego. In fact, with the new law, we've had several internal conversations about how to best respond and react. I would say that that's a continuing conversation. Eric, I'm not sure if you have anything else to add.
Thank you, John. Mayor Harkey, Mayor Gallego. I think that's one thing we're evaluating. As John said, we have had internal discussions with FHWA, FTA also. I think in the short term, I think we're in okay shape. Obviously, we have a lot of resources going into our Prop 400 extension legislative efforts right now. Hopefully, those will be tapering off here over the next couple months. I think between our staff and consulting resources, I think that are available to us on call, I think we can handle the next 6 months fairly well. We will be evaluating staffing levels from a couple of different perspectives. One, from the Prop 400 extension efforts, are there any additional staffing requirements necessary to support that effort? But also, in particular, these grant proposals, as John mentioned, can be fairly labor intensive to put together. And just understanding the different programs, John had that chart up there showing the different discretionary programs, the different programs. Each one of those will have, program development, project selection criteria, everything like that. And each one of those will have to have somebody, a MAG staff person, supporting that effort too. Obviously, the staff people can support more than one of those, but there will be some increased work on our part, definitely. We'll be evaluating that over the next few months.
Wonderful. One area where it seems like we have broad consensus is around electric vehicles. Many mayors, including I think our MAG chairman, have highlighted electric vehicles in recent State of the City addresses, and it seems like we have an area of excellence here. So that's one where I think we should consider how we are staffing that. Today, the Phoenix City Council will vote on a Vision Zero policy related to safety on our streets. We are doing that for many reasons, most important obviously being the work to save lives. But one of them, frankly, is that we believe it will make us more competitive for federal grants. Are there policies such as Vision Zero or in the area of carbon where if we adopted them at a regional level, we might be more competitive?
Mr. Chairman, Mayor Gallego, yes, definitely. I think if there's some policy positions that we can come together as a region and say this is a regional vision, safety is a great example of that. Safety touches everybody across the entire region. It's one of our high priority areas also. And it's a new program under the Prop 400 extension. So it kind of ticks all those boxes. So we anticipate that will be one area that we certainly will be beefing up. And I think to the extent we have regional policies in place or regional positions in place that are consistent with a Vision Zero type concept, then I think that really provides more support in grant applications too, shows cohesion within the region, which I think is extremely important.
Thank you, Mayor Gallego. Any other questions?
Chair Harkey, I have an additional question.
Yes, Jen Daniels.
I've heard conflicting, statements, and it could be that it's not clear within IIJA, but will MAG region be doing the actual applications for the grants, or are we required to have those flow all through ADOT?
Mr. Chairman, Ms. Daniels, I think that entirely depends on the grant application in question. Historically, for the grant applications for under the FAST Act, those largely had been initiated by either member agencies. In rare occasions, MAG had actually facilitated one, but we did take items through our committee process, providing regional support, if you will. So I would say it entirely depends on the actual grant program itself, and that's something that we'll continue to be looking at as additional guidance comes out.
Thank you. And then one additional question, beyond our congressional representatives, do we have a presence from a regional perspective at the federal level, particularly engaging in efforts with the Federal Highway Administration?
Mayor Harkey, Ms. Daniels, my understanding is that we do not have any federal transportation lobbying resources under contract at this time.
Okay, and then to Mayor Gallego's point earlier about electric vehicles and our desire and I guess uniform appreciation and excitement around that. It is my understanding that there is a stakeholders group. Is that being run by ACA or ADOT?
Mr. Chairman, Ms. Daniels, so ADOT has recently pulled together a stakeholder group. As I had noted, that EV charging funding does flow to the states. So with the guidance that came out last Thursday, this is all rapidly developing, if you will. So my understanding is that the first stakeholder group was actually held on Monday. We have meeting requests in with ADOT to get a little more insight on in terms of what they're thinking, what they're planning, and certainly do anticipate being partners in that process.
Because we are required to file that plan for the state by August, is that correct?
August 1st, that's correct.
Okay. But we don't currently as a region have a seat on that stakeholders group.
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? I think we certainly want to make sure that whatever resources that we can put to the table to help our position, and this might certainly help several of the other questions that are being asked. We certainly would love to consider them and Meg's role in the same. All right. Moving on to item number 6. Thank you, John. Nathan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the Transportation Policy Committee. Today, I'm going to focus the presentation on our enabling legislation for extension of the half-cent sales tax for transportation in Maricopa County. Obviously, a lot of work, attention, energy has gone into this effort. No surprise, the bills have been introduced. Senator Pace has introduced Senate Bill 1356. Representative Carroll has introduced House Bill 2598. The 1356 did receive a hearing in the Senate Transportation Committee on January 31st. It did pass 9-0. Similarly, it did advance in rules, deemed proper for consideration this past Monday. On the House side, 2598 was heard on February 9th in the House Transportation Committee. It did pass 8-3 with 1 absent. Next slide, please. So just by way of reminder, what do these bills do? Of course, extend the tax for 25 years, puts in place a regionally strategic infrastructure investment plan, guides funding allocations, allocates 100% of sales tax revenues with guaranteed minimums, prescribes processes for major changes, affirms the role of the Transportation Policy Committee, and establishes a 14% cap on light rail. Of note, when this was heard in the House, a number of concerns were offered up to Representative Carroll. So Representative Carroll and Senator Pace had convened a conversation. I'd like to thank Mayor Giles and Mayor Wires for not only providing testimony at both the Senate and House hearings, but also being in those conversations with Representative Pace, Representative Carroll and Senator Pace, along with interested parties to clarify some of the language in the bill. So the number of provisions that were provided clarity to regarding defining regional programs, clarifying some audit language, clarifying plan allocations. Also, a requirement for MAG to consider truck parking was included as well in an amendment, and also providing flexibility to change allocations. These amendments are within the parameters of the approved transportation plan. So as part of the passage in the House Transportation Committee, that amendment was included, so that bill did pass as amended. This week, we've seen caucus conversations. Our understanding is those are trending overall positive to date. Leadership discussions are also ongoing. As I noted, the Senate bill did pass in rules. We're pending to be assigned to rules with the House bill. So looking forward to that. and of course, moving on to committee of the whole. We encourage you to please contact your legislators, continue contacting them for support. Very critical now as we enter this phase of the legislative process. I just want to note too, a word of thanks to the regional council at their January 26th meeting. There was conversation about having a letter reaffirming the vote and approval of MAG. So that letter was signed by regional council elected officials, sent to Senator Pace, Representative Carroll. The TPC was copied on that letter. So hopefully you've seen that letter. And again, thanks to Mayor Giles, Mayor Wires for all their work in this. And of course, the business community. A lot of coordination has gone on, continues to be ongoing with the business community and doing outreach with legislators, lunch and learns, and so on and so forth. So a lot of work's going on, a lot of coordination work with business community. But thank you, member agencies, for your continued outreach, your support in this, and having conversations with members of the legislature. Mr. Chairman, that completes my presentation. I'm available for any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions from membership? All right, and again, as the last, this is on the agenda for information and discussion only. Item number 7, are there any requests by membership for an item on a future agenda? Certainly, we brought forth item 4 on a future agenda at some point. It was tabled today. Any others? Okay, hearing none. Are there any item number 8? Are there any comments or announcements from the membership? All right, thank you. Hearing none, I'd like to adjourn our meeting. Our business is concluded. Our meeting is adjourned. Have a great afternoon, everybody.